Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now. Black power.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
It is Wednesday, December 28th, 2022. I'm attorney Robert Patillo, sitting in for Roland Martin, who is currently on vacation. Will be back in early January. Here's what's coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. The Supreme Court has blocked the Biden administration's attempts to allow Title 42 to expire. Title 42, of course, being the Trump-era policy, which curtailed immigration and the seeking of asylum by migrants based upon coronavirus fears. Coronavirus restrictions have been gone. Why is Title 42 still in place? We'll have a discussion on that. Additionally, a Florida officer has been fired after video surfaced of him dragging a handcuffed woman into jail. We will have a discussion and full breakdown of exactly what happened. An NFL Hall of Famer is going to an HBCU. We'll tell you what coach and what school, and we'll break down the entire story later on in the show. Also, rapper Tory Lanez was convicted in the shooting case involving Meg Thee Stallion. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea who any of these people are. I have no idea what happened in this case. Therefore, we're going to bring in some experts and celebrity blogger Fredio to talk about this, and then have our legal panel discuss what exactly will happen next in this situation. Finally, in our Tech Talk segment, there is a high schooler who is changing the game when it comes to gardening, creating an app that will help individuals identify plants without having to study botany. This is very important for our urban gardeners and to get young people interested in growing and cultivating their own food. So we'll have that discussion later on in the show. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network.
Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on Go Roll Roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best. You know he's Roland Martin now.
President Donald Trump made it very clear the minute that he announced he was running for office, his belief to the America needs to curtail immigration from south of the border in particular, specifically Central American and South American countries. He called Mexicans rapists. He said that some of them might be good people. And when he got into office, he instituted his famous Muslim ban to curtail even travel from Middle Eastern countries. And when he got the opportunity, him and his cadre of white supremacists, including Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller, crafted Title 42. What Title 42 does is enable our border officials to turn away migrants who are seeking asylum under the emergency powers of the president based upon coronavirus fears. Now, of course, during a worldwide pandemic, you allow extra powers to the executive branch to keep people safe until we find out what exactly is going on. But long since, we've seen every other coronavirus-related regulation be rolled back. Everything from masking in schools, social distancing, working from home, Zooming to every meeting, etc. However, conservatives remain steadfast in continuing to enforce Title 42 because it's part of their overall plan and scheme to limit immigration from Central American and South American countries. So much so that 19 Republican states sued the federal government to prevent it from allowing Title 42 to sunset this spring. This case went before the Supreme Court, and of course, with a 6-3 majority on the court, the Supreme Court voted to stop the Biden administration from allowing Title 42 to expire, therefore setting up the stage for oral arguments in February, where we'll get a final judgment. Associate Justice Neil Gorsuch, one of the conservatives on the court, actually sided with the progressives and authored a dissent along with Ketanji Brown Jackson, articulating the fact that this is beyond the scope of the powers of the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is now stepping out of simply calling balls and strikes and is actually setting national immigration policy, in this case, according to Justice Gorsuch. To talk more about what we can expect going forward on Title 42 and what this means to the migrant community, we're joined by a professor from Georgetown University, Dr. Nola Haynes. Dr. Haynes, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. Can you talk a little bit about what Title 42 has done to migrants seeking asylum here in the United States of America?
Can you hear and see me? My Wi-Fi has not been my best friend lately.
Yes, we can. If you can hear me, I was just asking, what do you think Title 42 has done to the migrant community here in the U.S. during the course that's been in place?
You know, I'm happy that we're talking about this tonight, and I'm happy that you mentioned the travel ban, because immigration is definitely a matter of national security. And I've spent actually a great deal of time looking at the 2017 and 2020 travel bans through a national 32 is the Trump administration using explanations to pretty much ban a group of people that they do not want here in this country. And as you pointed out, yes, we were all struggling through COVID. So an argument can be made at that time, drastic measures had to be taken. But as you also mentioned, there's no need to continue these measures. With the travel ban, the reason used was global terrorism. That was debunked. And the reason that it's continuing now is because technically, yes, we are still in a global pandemic. But it is nowhere near as immigration. I understand that a lot of southern borders are overwhelmed with the situation on the border, but this is not the fix. And then secondly, this is also a matter of security because we have to ask the question, who gets to be secured? Why is it just people coming in from the southern border having problems trying to get in, seeking asylum? And seeking asylum is something very specific. You are seeking to be safe. You are seeking to be secured from a very dangerous and violent situation in your home country. And my overall worry is, what is this going to look like for other immigrants seeking asylum, from browner countries, say Ethiopia or Haiti? I work in the Afghanistan space. This makes me worry for the ongoing situation there. So this is a situation that has far-reaching implications. And I think that there are people in our country who want to keep a certain group out of our country. And I think that they need to look within themselves and ask themselves why, because everyone deserves to be secured.
What do you think it means? I was very taken aback by Justice Gorsuch joining the progressives on the court and saying this is outside the purview of the Supreme Court. What do you think it means going forward, the fact that conservatives have this majority on the court where they can override even someone like Justice Gorsuch, a staunch conservative, and expanding the role of the court in setting national policy?
I listen to my students on this one, and they ask all the time, so what's the purpose of the Supreme Court when it is very clear that it is political? And the Supreme Court itself is supposed to be apolitical, but yet we describe justices based on their political standing. That's the problem. So I see that perhaps this may wade into the waters of further discussion about the legitimacy of the court. And I know that the justices have pushed back on that notion. But when, I'm in a classroom and I'm teaching the next group of world leaders and I'm listening to them and I'm taking their feedback, they don't believe in the United States Supreme Court. Once upon a time, if Congress was polling terribly, if the president was polling terribly, the United States Supreme Court always was polling favorably because there was a feeling that about the question of legitimacy. And that is actually within the purview of the United States Supreme Court once they actually decision make. What's going
Go ahead, continue.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I think the other question that has arisen is the cure for this, of course, would be comprehensive immigration reform. We have the Schumer compromise in 2013 that Republicans walked away from. We had the Obama compromise in 2015 that Republicans walked away from. We had Schumer come back in 2018 with Trump to try to pass comprehensive immigration reform that they walked away from. What are the chances of actual immigration reform happening anytime in the next 2 years?
Oh, that's a tricky question. With the way that the House and the Senate is set up right now, I did not mean to bring my goodness, I'm thinking about the Kevin Hart joke. But anyway, the way that the House and Senate is set up right now, we'll see. I am very hopeful that something will be done, but I will tell you this, dropping innocent people off in front of the vice president's home is not a way to solve it. Denying asylum seekers safety and security is not a way to solve it. So it definitely needs to be comprehensive reform, because right now we are contributing to the violence and the harm that these people are trying to escape. Can you imagine seeking asylum in a country that says all are welcome? I mean, this is a country full of immigrants. I mean, it seems to be completely antithetical to what we say that we stand for. And again, the question has to be asked, who gets to be secured? So what group gets to come in and seek asylum versus the groups that are kept out seeking asylum? And this is something that needs to be considered when we are thinking about Title 42, because it's impacting people coming from South and Central America, and that is an issue because if it's impacting them, like I said earlier, what other groups will it impact that's seeking asylum? And one last thing, this is not the only time that the former administration tried to hack away at immigration, particularly with the travel ban. The travel ban, the later iterations of the International Nationality Act that allowed for people from browner countries to come into the United States in the late 60s. This was one of the things passed in the large civil rights bills across time that a lot of people don't think about. And so that. This is not the first attempt to keep people out that have melanin in their skin. And I just want to continue to say that. And I hope that I hope this temporary ban will be just that, a temporary ban.
It's interesting you mentioned people seeking asylum because after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, you had thousands of Ukrainian refugees coming to America seeking asylum, and there was none of this consternation. There was none of this talk about being overrun and them destroying Western civilization, as we hear from some on the political right. What exactly would comprehensive immigration reform look like? We've heard various arguments, whether that be amnesty, a pathway to citizenship, expansion of H-1B visas. What do you think has to be included? Something that could actually get bipartisan agreement?
That's a really big question for someone who works in that area that I do not work in that area. What I will say is, I think that, so first of all, there are tons of different types of visas. So it depends on what sort of visa people from Ukraine are coming in on. Like, say, for instance, a lot of our allies, and it should be across the board the same for everyone. If one set of rules apply for asylum seekers, it should apply for another group of asylum seekers. There are those who say, but it's different when the U.S. has some level of direct involvement, say Afghanistan, or the way that we assist in military and security assistance in Ukraine. Okay, that's one argument. But at the end of the day, I think that asylum seeking laws should stand across the board. And I do understand the additional element responsibility, like with the Afghanistan situation. But for me, at the end of the day, it does not work in our best interest when we are turning away brown folks and we are letting in folks who have less melanin. I don't think that's what the country wants to stand for. I don't think that's what the Biden-Harris administration wants to stand for. And I think going forward, we literally have to look at it through that lens, because right now it's not a good look. It is not a good look at all.
You mentioned the direct influence of American policy on immigration. Do you think that we have to start holding the American government accountable for its role in creating this immigration crisis? President Trump tried to overthrow the government of Venezuela a couple years ago, replacing Maduro with Juan Guaido. And because of that, we're having massive migrant crisis coming from Venezuela, walking all the way up Central America to come to America. America snorts up about half the cocaine the world produces. And because of that, drug gangs are running rampant. The FARC in Colombia, the Northern Triangle in Mexico. Does America need to change its policy to Central and South America before it does anything about immigration here?
Well, first of all, you're not about to get me to step on no landmines, first of all. And secondly, I don't like to comment on things that really are not in my wheelhouse. And I really can't speak to what's going on in Central America in terms of the drug situation, in terms of what the former administration's goals might have been there. What I will say, what I do know about in terms of how we view security and how we think about who gets to be secured, that's the lens in which I think about this. In terms of U.S. involvement and people snorting coke and cartels and stuff like that, that's not my wheelhouse. But I will say that everyone deserves Hello.
All right. Well, I thank you so much for joining us today. We're, of course, going to keep an eye on this. Oral arguments will be coming up in this case in February, and then we'll find out if the court either will make a ruling on whether or not the 19 states can sue the federal government over this, or if they will stay this again, and we'll have another conversation. So thank you so much, Professor Dr. Nola Hayes from Georgetown University. We'll be back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. We'll be back after the break.
I love directing. It's a different kind of piece. I do believe that the 30 years I was acting was to prepare me for what I'm supposed to be doing, and that what I'm really am good at.
But when you were acting, were you even thinking about directing?
Nope.
Were you? So what the hell happened?
If you had asked me 15 years ago, I probably would have said, no, I don't know. I was doing Ava DuVernay's first film, I Will Follow. Mm-hmm. And during that process, I think because it was her first film, maybe
She's self-taught?
Absolutely. I probably gave too many suggestions. And at some point, Ava said to me, I think you're a director and you don't know it.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, it's time to tie up those loose ends. Setting yourself up for balance, success, and even prosperity in the new year. Financial expert Pamela Sams joins our panel. She will give us a checklist of things that we need to do before the calendar turns.
We develop our money mindset by the age of 6. And so we have our sometimes 6-year-old self still operating in the background of our money scripts.
That's next on A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
You want me to do something crazy, but I don't know what to do. I'd rather just sit here.
Hi, this is Cheryl Lee Ralph, and you are watching Roland Martin, Unfiltered. I mean, could it be any other way? Really? It's Roland Martin.
We're going to keep this conversation going on Title 42. I want to bring in our panel on this discussion. We have Dr. Jason Nichols, Senior Lecturer, African American Studies Department at the University of Maryland, as well as Attorney Joe Richardson, Civil Rights Attorney. Gentlemen, how are you doing this evening?
We're good. Wonderful. Hanging in there.
All right. I'm going to start with you, Dr. Nichols, on this issue of thank you guys so much. I want to start with you, Dr. Nichols, on this question of Title 42. In particular, what this means for our migrant community, because America, we have that big green statue in New York that says, bring me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. And then we also have a border wall at the southern border turning people away. What does it say about America that we have this policy in place and you have an unelected group of 9 Supreme Court justices that can keep this going seemingly indefinitely?
Well, first of all, I think it's really important to reiterate the point that you made with your other guest, and that is that Title 42 is not and never was a solution for the failure of Congress to act on immigration reform. It is a public health measure, and it was not an immigration measure, which it's being used as right now. I think, first of all, we know the legitimacy of the Supreme Court is certainly in question. If not, we need to be looking at other things like court expansion and everything. We have people on the Supreme Court who are completely compromised and probably should not be there. And we need to look at term limits and other things. But this is, what it means for these migrant communities. I heard, what I could hear from your other guest was interesting. I think it's important to point out that there are Black people, particularly Haitians, on the border right now. So it's not about necessarily what's going to happen in the future. That's actually happening at this very moment. Asylum, of course, is a legal process in order to gain entry. And it's not as though Congress doesn't have solutions, bipartisan solutions that are before Congress right now. You know, even someone who we usually will talk about and despise, John Cornyn, has the Bipartisan Border Solutions Act, which talks about expediting, you know, removal for people who don't fit, but also about building more intake facilities so that you don't have the situation that you have right now in El Paso, Texas, where, you know, the city is really struggling to house a lot of people. And Title 42, I just want to make this one last point, Robert, and that is that Title 42 has not even stopped the amount of border encounters. As a matter of fact, CBP has had more border encounters under Title 42 than prior to its implementation. So you look at, for example, fiscal year 2019, it was about 900,000, 800,000 to 900,000 border encounters, and now we're up to 2.3 million. So if Title 42 is doing what Republicans are talking about it's doing, wouldn't that number be lower? It's actually not. So what it's doing is allowing for people who have legitimate claims to asylum to not be able to go through the legal process to gain entry, and that's really troubling.
You know, Joe, it's interesting to me that Republicans are suing to keep Title 42 in place, claiming that it's in order to stop illegal immigration. However, people who are asylees are by their very nature not illegal immigrants. They are people who are seeking asylum, who are fleeing war, crime, famine, the natural disasters in their home countries. And actually what you end up doing with Title 42 by overwhelming Customs and Border Patrol with people who are simply trying to turn themselves in and claim asylum, well, then they cannot be patrolling the other areas where the actual illegal border crossings are taking place. That's where your coyotes are at. That is where you're getting your fentanyl coming in. That is where you're getting human trafficking coming in. They're not seeking asylum. Can you talk a little bit about the what policy solutions have to be put in place? Because as Jason said, there's bipartisan legislation, but it seems like nothing can get off the ground. What will bipartisan solutions to this actually look like?
Well, you know, first of all, where there's a will, there's a way, right? And at the risk of going back to, you know, desiring something from the Reagan administration, in 1986, there was a huge amnesty program, and that's because they were honest. It's not because Reagan was progressive. As a matter of fact, him and Bush, when they were running against each other in 1980, they bent over backwards to appear more accommodating to immigrants and to illegal immigrants and to the undocumented. And because they were honest about the fact that these folks work and these folks get hired. The reason why our undocumented brothers and sisters come, first of all, is they're often dealing with a war-torn country. They're dealing with the instability, particularly in Central America, that may have been, you know, not exactly helped or hindered by our actual policies, right? They're dealing with those things. And there are certain guarantees that everyone that is seeking asylum are supposed to get. And the problem with Title 42 is Title 42 takes away from those. And of course, as has been said and alluded to, it's part of the larger narrative and the larger attempt for certain people to keep America from getting darker faster. Now, as it pertains to potential solutions, there's been a whole lot of folks. The point that was just made about Senator Cronin. A couple years ago, Pete Aguilar and Will Hurd put together something very narrow that had the potential to do something. It increased border security, because you always got to give more money for border security, but it also would have protected DACA, and it also would have done some other things. So there had been some opportunities there, but while you don't deal with it, people still make it over the border. People are still more subject to coyotes and some other things because of the safety issues, the people that you're turning away. The irony in all this, two ironies. First of all, is that while you say that you're doing this to make America more safe, you're actually making it less safe. And whatever our global pandemic is, or was, or shall be, we know much more about it, right? So at the risk of agreeing with Gorsuch, the emergency, if it existed at all, right? We can talk about that some other time. Sure, there's some emergency related to the pandemic, but the idea that we are less safe because we're not allowing helpless brown people to come into the country is ridiculous. And then the final point that I would make, so of course there has to be some kind of narrow path, and who knows, with this presumption, with so many moderates in Congress now, people that need to hold on to their jobs, et cetera. There may be a narrow window for something to actually get done because it will be the most honest thing. The final point I'll make is that it is interesting that the Supreme Court is pragmatic and has no problem with making policy when it gets there. People used to like to talk about how, the liberals they're lawmakers. They're legislating from the bench. Listen, Republicans legislate from the bench all the time, and this is a perfect example of it.
You know, it's interesting that we talk about the racial composition of America and that being what is stopping Republicans from agreeing on things such as comprehensive immigration reform. If you go all the way back to the Mexican-American War, and the period before that, the reason we have the current borders that we have right now with Mexico are based upon white supremacy. Mexico had gotten their independence from Spain about 20 years earlier. They're chilling. They're trying to expand their country. Then you get a group of white Americans who illegally immigrate to Mexican territory and then declare themselves the free nation of Texas. After that, President Polk invades Mexico, claiming that Mexican bandits are raiding areas which are in their own territory. They defeat Mexico, and then they actually occupied Mexico City for a period of time, and there was a proposal before Congress to annex the entirety of the country of Mexico, all the way down into Central America, and they decided against it for one reason: white supremacy. They did not want to bring that many Latino citizens into America, changing the racial composition of America, and thereby ceding power to another racial group besides white European migrants. That is the whole reason we have the Gadsden Purchase and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, which very much set our southern border. So you cannot separate racism from American immigration policy with Central and South America, because incumbent on that, the genesis of that policy has been racism. Now, I wanted to hop on this point about the fact that America caused many of the issues that people are running from in Central and South America. The reason that they are seeking asylum, in part, are the banana wars, where America was overthrowing government so Chiquita Banana could build plantations on their land. The war on drugs, where you have the Reagan administration paying off the cartels and to finance money for Iran-Contra, all the way to the series of coups that America has led in Central and South America, overthrowing leadership, destabilizing those nations throughout the Cold War to prevent quote-unquote communist infiltration. Professor Nichols, is there going to be a point where America admits to their role in this and therefore offer solutions, or are we still going to just act as if this is just random acts, the reason these people are coming to America?
So firstly, I want to just make a statement based on your assessment of the Spanish-American War, which is correct. And that is there's a saying along the border, and it's in Spanish, and it's "Yo no crucé la frontera me cruzó a mí," which means I never crossed the border crossed me. So people have always recognized this. This is why, you know, if you live in a state and it's called California or it's called Colorado, or, you know, all of that is because those actually that was actually Mexico. And, you know, many of you live in cities like San Francisco or Los Angeles or San Jose. It's, you know, now you probably knew this before, but I think it's important to also say that. And the United States, of course, is not going to admit its wrongs. This is public knowledge. But when you talk about, of course, the destabilization of Nicaragua, you know, the ousting of the Sandinistas, what we did in El Salvador, and some of the atrocities that we allowed to happen. Certainly, we know climate change has also been a more recent devastating factor in that part of the world that's caused a lot of migration. One of the things that I will give this administration some credit for is that they say they're looking for root causes. Now, I think one of the things that the United States government could certainly do when they're looking for root causes is lift up a mirror, and they'll probably see a lot of the root causes staring right back at them. I think we certainly need to partner with Central American nations and, of course, with Mexico, and help to bring some of the stability that we actually created, the instability in those areas. It's a little more complicated because when you destabilize an area, you bring in corruption. That's what happens. You destabilize an area, corrupt leaders come in, and now you're left in this position of trying to negotiate and help people in an area where the leadership is corrupt. So that's part of the issue in Central America right now, that this State Department has to find a way around. But still, what we have at our border, when people are coming and looking for asylum, and you talked a little bit earlier, Robert, about the people from Eastern Europe. I don't think there's a place on the on the planet that's less politically stable than Haiti. But yet, for some reason, we seem to say, the Biden administration was flying people back in droves, saying you don't qualify for political asylum.
Well, I think we have to keep an eye on this situation going forward. Of course, we're going to be updating everyone when those oral arguments come in February, but we have to pressure this administration to make this a priority. If you can pass a $1.7 trillion bill last week, you can pass some kind of immigration reform to fix this problem. So we're going to keep this conversation going. We'll be back after the break. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is RolandSMartin.com.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr, we welcome the Black Star Network's very own Roland Martin, who joins us to talk about his new book, White Fear: How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. The book explains so much about what we're going through in this country right now, and how, as white people head toward becoming a racial minority, it's going to get, well, let's just say, even more interesting.
We are going to see more violence. We're going to see more vitriol, because as each day passes, it is a nail in that coffin.
The one and only Roland Martin on the next Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Israel Houghton with Israel and New Breed.
What's up? I'm Dr. Ricky Dillard, the choir master.
Hey, yo, peace, world. What's going on? It's the Love King of R&B, Raheem Devon, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Tampa, Florida police officers out of a job after body cam video was released showing him dragging a woman from his car into the jail. Officer Gregory Damon was arrested a woman on November 17th for trespassing. The suspect refused to leave Damon's vehicle and told the officer, "I want you to drag me." Damon obliged and drugged the woman on the ground while still handcuffed. Now, the Tampa Bay Police Department has launched an internal investigation and determined Damon violated multiple policies, including a 2013 department policy forbidding officers from dragging uncooperative suspects on the ground. Of course, this comes in as a result of several years of protests by activists nationwide to limit the use of excessive force by police officers. And of course, this is a sign of progress, because I think for years, police officers have engaged in this type of activity with absolutely no repercussions. I want to bring the panel back in. We're also joined by former prosecutor attorney Christina Sears. on this subject. So, Christina, you've worked with officers at the prosecutor's office before. What does it mean when you have a department that is actually responding to the calls of activists, putting in new policies? Again, there's a 2013 policy here, and actually following through with the determination of an individual for excessive force.
I think it's a change in the positive direction, the right direction. It's what should happen. I think people are tired of hearing departments say they're conducting an investigation, and the investigation goes on for months and months, and then there's no productive outcome from the investigation that changes policy. I think this action on the part of Tampa is what's needed in more police departments across the country.
And Joe, on this point, I think you and I have seen these cases for years. We've litigated these cases of excessive force against police officers. What does it mean when our police department is actually finally using proactive steps to fire these officers instead of, the normal, we put him on administrative leave, he's going to be on desk duty for a while. We've looked into the situation. We've determined that he was well within the parameters of his employment, and then nothing ends up happening. Do you think this is a change that we're going to see spreading throughout the nation, or do you think this is maybe an isolated incident just because this was on body cam?
Well, I'm from California, but right now I'll invoke being from Missouri and say, show me. All right. We're going to have to see if this continues to be a thing. Now, the camera was good. It was clear. It was a little harder to hide, et cetera. Maybe we just caught them because it's Christmas time. They decided to give us a gift or whatever else. But I think it's really important when police or any agency, when I'm suing an employer, when I'm suing police brutality, I look for the rules and the policies of their own, which they wrote, which they broke. Okay, and so what happens is a lot of times, they'll run out the clock. They'll hope that outrage will go away and dissipate over time. They'll sit tight. They'll do the desk duty thing. All of those types of things, and hopefully have it go away or allow it to play some gray area. Just because this woman said, "I want you to drag me," doesn't mean that he should have done it. Protecting and serving, often these departments will say they're protecting and serve. Sometimes that actually means protecting a citizen from themselves. If you are police, then police have to do their job when things don't go well, when people have maybe mental illness, which we should have less of directly, or where people are rambunctious or they are, not following orders or whatever else. You still have to go above and beyond. It would not have been a bad thing or a hard thing for this person, this officer, to call and get some help, just like he did once they got to the door. He just said, okay, you've dared me to do something. I'm going to do it. I'm going to let you know. But again, there's something in the back of his mind. If he really thought he was going to be fired, if he really thought about the fact that there was a camera watching him, he didn't think he was going to get fired despite the camera. He didn't think he was going to get fired despite the policy. Most people show up to work and want to keep their jobs, even though they don't do what they're supposed to in the meantime. So I'm glad that this happened. Is it a trend? Is it something that we can go in a positive direction on and become, you're department to department, right? And so you can't say that just because this happened here, that it's going to happen everywhere. But you can say we see a path for police officers being held accountable, and that's good news.
Professor Nichols, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second because I was reading the comment section on this video. And of course, the maggots are out saying, well, she said, drag me. What was the officer supposed to do? He was just trying to execute his job and she was obstructing. If you just comply, these things won't happen to you. What is the response to those people who genuinely believe that it's the officer's prerogative, that if somebody's being uncooperative, that you can use whatever means necessary to get them into custody?
So I guess she could have said, uncuff me, and he would have uncuffed her, but he's following her orders, or let me go, or, all of that. I didn't know that police officers were in the business of listening and always following the directions of people that they have detained. And if they are, it's interesting that they're going to do that rather than department policy. So I don't think that that's a very strong argument. I think listening to someone who's detained, and I think your other guest, I think it's Joe, made a really good point, and that is sometimes you have to, in serving and protecting, you have to protect people from themselves. You don't know if someone's having a mental health crisis. Does that mean if someone is detained or is in a facility under police custody or in police custody, that if they try to hang themselves, that you're not going to intervene because you're going to be like, well, they said they wanted to die, so I'm just going to allow that to happen. So I think it's a really weak argument. I think there are many, many ways he could have handled that. Of course, it didn't look like, he was in some sort of a big rush. So why not wait, call for help? There was something that I always remember as a student of the civil rights movement. One of the things that made it very difficult for civil rights leaders who depended upon, dare I say, stupid cops like that, was for them to make these kinds of stupid decisions. But the leader, the chief in Albany, Georgia, ordered stretchers so that you couldn't get them on camera dragging black people. So the smart thing would have been, I don't know, first of all, that this is going to make some sort of huge nationwide institutional change, because if that were the case, there would have been institutional change in 1992 when we first got video of a black man being beaten on the highway by police. That didn't make institutional change. All of the other videos that we have didn't make institutional change. So I'm skeptical about that. But there were many ways he could have handled that. And the fact that, she asked him to drag her is a pretty absurd kind of an argument.
Hey, moving on to our next story, similarly associated. Two D.C. police officers who were suspended after the death of a 20-year-old back in the year 2020 have indeed been convicted. Two suspended Metropolitan Police Department officers, one being Terrence Sutton, was convicted of second-degree murder, a conspiracy to obstruct and obstruction of justice in the death of Kayron Hilton Brown. Also suspended Lieutenant Andrew Zabowski was found guilty of conspiracy to obstruct and obstruction of justice. Kayron was killed in October 2020. He was driving a Revel scooter on the sidewalk without a helmet, prompting the officers to turn on their emergency lights. And at the time, they accelerated through traffic lights for more than 10 blocks. This resulted in the death of Mr. Hilton Brown, who suffered severe head trauma and died 2 days later from his injuries. So, Christina, you've seen cases like this, the prosecution of cops. Can you talk a little bit about how difficult it is to convict cops, particularly when they come in full uniform? The jury has a bias towards them. How rare is it for officers to be convicted in a case like this?
Well, typically when officers are following department policy, it's hard to even get an indictment. And officers come in with the societal view that officers are going to tell the truth and that they are upstanding and that they're here to serve the public and they're here to protect the public. But it's quite a different story when an officer is a potential defendant or a defendant in a case where their actions and behavior should be questioned. It's hard for a potential juror or a juror to look past what it is they already know and believe and understand about police officers and really to commit to listening to the evidence and hearing from the witnesses about what happened and to set aside what they believe about officers already. It's hard for anyone in any situation to become a juror on a case and to leave their common sense at the door. We always ask jurors not to do that. It's also something that we want them to bring with them. We want them to bring their experiences and their understanding of life. And a lot of people have the understanding and the experience and good experiences with officers. So it's very difficult to get a conviction in cases involving officers. The difference makers have become video evidence that supports what eyewitnesses in the past have been able to testify to, but now the video brings something additional to the table that jurors can consider. And so I think with the introduction of more video that we're going to see more officers being convicted. I think it's going to be a slow turn in that direction, but it is going to occur.
And Joe, on that point, we've seen jurisdictions around the country pay out multi-million-dollar settlements to families as a result of wrongful death at the hands of police officers. I think city of Chicago is up over $1 billion in settlements paid out, and that has not resulted in changing the conduct of police or police departments. Do you think now that we're starting to actually convict officers of some of these charges, second-degree murder, obstruction of justice, et cetera, that will have more of an effect than the civil judgments that we've seen previously?
Perhaps so, because when you take money, if you're not taking money out of their pocket, if you're not, jeopardizing their pensions or anything like that, well, on some level, that just becomes the cost of doing business. You still send the message. There are plenty of cases that we think out here would never get convictions, but probably could get enough mileage on the civil side where it's going to exact some certain settlement. We understand that. But once you start taking folk freedom, once you say you got to sit here and think about this for 15, 20 years or 5 or 10, it's very, very easy to spend the public's money getting in trouble, okay? It's a little bit harder when we're talking about your freedom. And so perhaps that is a turning point. I agree with the point that was just made. The video evidence is very, very good evidence. Often it's better than even eyewitness testimony because you can confuse an eyewitness. Sometimes folks, because of their biases, thought they saw something they didn't, or that testimony changes over time. But the video is the video. The video is hot, baby. It is what it is, and there it is, right? And so that's going to be very important, and that's the reason why, you see a lot of experts. You saw this happen on the Dean case in Fort Worth, where they tried to use an expert to say, well, you didn't really see what you thought you saw on the body cam. No, actually, we did see that. And so, therefore, perhaps with the proliferation, for lack of a better term, of video evidence, that's why George Floyd caused the attention that it did. How many times did that happen without us knowing? And we make progress. There's still no guarantee, right? We saw what happened with Rodney King, and he was still found not guilty. The folks that did it were still found not guilty. But that is a turning point and can be something that can be relied on to potentially get better results because people that are worried about their own freedom, particularly police, where they have always gotten deference, always gotten the benefit of the doubt, to the point where folks would undermine eyewitness testimony and everything else, if their freedom is potentially taken away, then maybe they're thinking twice before some of these things happen.
Absolutely. And Jason, I had this idea a few years ago that we need to create like a line of drones that pairs to your phone that we can just give every young black boy in the country that just follows you around, filming you 24 hours a day, just in case you have a police encounter, because it seems that that's the only thing people will believe. They won't believe the words of witnesses. They won't believe the words of the victim. But if you have a drone following you around 24/7, that's something that we can believe in. What do we need to do to turn this from being a crapshoot, whether or not there's video of the police abusing you, to an actual practice and policy in this nation of actually believing victims and being able to have these types of outcomes without having 1080p 4K video of the cops killing somebody?
So I think one of the things, and I'm going to kind of differ. I know that my co-panelists here are attorneys and they've been through these trials, and I'm just an academic, but I am going to talk about kind of the academic side of this. And it differs slightly from what they're saying. I agree with most of what they're saying, but one of the things that, the academic research, when they're looking at these kinds of things, kind of reflects is it's not necessarily the video evidence that gets convictions. When you look at, of course, we can all mention things like Alton Sterling or Eric Garner or many others that we saw pretty much all the full context. But there are a couple of things. Number one, the video may not have context. We've seen a lot of departments have body cams that you can turn on and off. Others, you can turn the sound off so you don't hear what's going on. So you don't necessarily get the full context. The other thing that I would say is when we're looking at video, it's not necessarily the determining factor. One of the things that research has shown is that when police officers actually can testify against other police officers, that's really what turns the tide. And as a matter of fact, since George Floyd was mentioned, yes, the video played a role, but I think it was the medical examiner and it was the other police officers coming out and saying, this is not department policy. This is not how you were trained. When they came out, that's what I think really set the tone for the trial. And we've seen that several times, even in the shooting, I believe it's Jordan Edwards, I think it was in Texas, 15-year-old honor student who was shot in the back by a police officer. The police officer said that they thought the car was going to run them over. And it was his partner that said, no, we were never in danger. And when that happened, that's how you got the conviction there. So I think part of this is breaking through the blue wall of silence and making sure that police officers are accountable and that police officers will testify against other rogue police officers when they do not actually adhere to department policy.
Absolutely. And I want for the young people out there who are marching in 2020, who have been active since the killing of Trayvon, going forward for the last decade, don't let anybody tell you that protesting doesn't matter. Don't let anybody tell you that activism doesn't matter. These convictions that we were talking about and the officer being fired in the previous case, they would have happened 15 years ago. It took an entire decade of activism and action to change policies and to start shifting this tide nationwide. So keep on the fight, keep going forward. We're going to keep this up. We'll be back with more Roland Martin Unfiltered after the break. Streaming live on the Black Star Network. Don't forget to like the video. Like and subscribe, like and subscribe, like and subscribe, and share. We got to get 1,000 likes on this video. We'll be back after the break.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots. We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance.
We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, it's time to tie up those loose ends. Setting yourself up for balance, success, and even prosperity in the new year. Financial expert Pamela Sams joins our panel. She will give us a checklist of things that we need to do before the calendar turns.
We develop our money mindset by the age of 6. And so we have our sometimes 6-year-old self still operating in the background of our money scripts.
That's next on A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
Y'all know who Roland Martin is. He got the ascot on, he do the news. It's fancy news.
Keep it rolling. Right here. Rolling.
Roland Martin.
Right now.
You are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, could it be any other way? Really? It's Roland Martin.
Today on Black and Missing, we are talking about Patricia Weeks. Patricia Weeks was last seen on Christmas Eve in Norfolk, Virginia. The 17-year-old is 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighs about 125 pounds with brown hair and brown eyes. Patricia has a tattoo sleeve on her arm with a clock on it, and her nose is pierced. She was last seen wearing a white jacket with a black car on the front, gray Goya pants, and black turban on her head. Patricia requires medication and may need medical attention. Anyone with information information about Patricia Weeks should call the Norfolk, Virginia Police Department at 757-664-7000. Again, that's the Norfolk Police Department, 757-664-7000. Of course, we want to make sure we bring all of our Black and missing home and bring the proper attention to these cases to help protect our communities. It's a great thing that Roland does, highlighting these cases to hopefully bring more young people home. Wanted to move on to a story out of California where an In-N-Out Burger has been accused by two people of racial harassment on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve, come on, folks. Arlene Kim and her friend filmed themselves trying menu items at In-N-Out in San Remo. The pair were approached by a white man who asked if they were filming themselves eating and proceeded to use racist and homophobic language. San Ramon police chief is investigating the incident. They released an image of the man's vehicle and asked anyone if they knew the man to contact the police department. I think this is interesting that even with the proliferation of camera phones and social media, with the surveillance state that we're currently in, with Karens blowing up left and right all over the country, that people are still doing things like that. I think we have a video of the incident that was recorded by the young women. I would bring the panel in on this also. The fact that we have so many of these incidents of people going crazy when they see Black folks minding their business, sitting down, eating, taking their time, etc. The fact that you still get people to go off like this is really insane to me. Professor Nichols, what do you think it is that really possesses these people? I think we have the video if we can throw that. What do you think it is with these people where they continuously see what happens when you go off on folks in public, where you become a public Karen? What possesses them to still do it going forward?
Well, I think one of the things is that a lot of when you see that, it's oftentimes not a person's first outburst or racist outburst. They've done this before, they've gotten away with it, and when you get away with things, sometimes you're like, hey, I can do it again. I'm angry, so I'm within my rights to sit here and berate somebody. So you see a lot of these, Karen-y figures, and you figure, oh, they just had one bad day, but that's not true. A lot of times this is a pattern, and we just happen to catch them on that day when they've started to go down this path. And this is why, this kind of show and the things that you and I do are really important, so we can call these people out and make it known that, we're not going to sit here and tolerate that kind of behavior.
All right, I think we do have a video. We're going to throw that. I think it's a couple minutes long, just showing this tirade, and we'll go back to the panel for a response.
Wait, have you had a light wheel fry before?
What is a light wheel fry?
Okay,
You're just filming yourself eating? Yeah. You're weird and almost. Yeah. Why me, man? Why me? I just want to eat my flying Dutchman in peace, bro. I feel like this is a fever dream. Like, is it still the 24th? Is it still Christmas Eve? It's because I'm ethnic. Honestly, for eating this flying Dutchman, I kind of feel like I deserve to be hate crime.
Well, that actually happened.
That really did actually just happen.
Japanese or Korean?
I'm Korean.
Yeah, you're Korean. Kim Jong-un's boyfriend, huh? You're Kim Jong-un's boyfriend?
You know, we have been acquainted.
You've had gay sex with him?
Ooh, would not go that far. We're only on second base. He hasn't taken me out to dinner yet. Can I take you out to dinner?
Come on, stop.
Nothing.
Stop.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Stop.
I'm sorry, my bad.
What?
I didn't say anything.
You didn't say anything?
No, sir.
I'm like it spit in your face and some Filipino shit. You want some
Don't
Filipino
react.
shit?
Why are you acting mad? Dude, we can get assaulted.
Oh my god, only in San Ramon, man. I thought we were having like...
No, you weren't. Anyways, you can try the... Anyways, you can try the fry.
Hey, you good?
I'm chilling, don't worry. This is not in the name of the holiday cheer. Yes, somebody was not included in all the reindeer games.
You should have not said anything. He's staring at us right now. Anyways, light wheel fry?
I would love one. He's still there, isn't he?
He is very much still there. Oh, At least I'll try the root beer float. That is a root beer. You think he's gonna pull a gun on him?
My midterms are almost being released. I'm just saying.
Honestly, 10 out of 10 would get it again. Oh my god, I can't even do this. I'm done. So I'm gonna try the whole grilled onion and see if it's
You sound so nervous. I'm gonna.
Well, yeah, because he's like, I'm gonna wait for you outside. I was eating the paper. Wow.
Also, Flying Dutchman is no more. Yeah, I can't speak. Rare laughs and dude, that genuinely never happened to me before.
Well, all I can say is those kids are better than me. Just going to put that out there that people need to know who they're talking to. Joe, what is the proper response for people when they have these types of racist confrontations? You know, you're not supposed to get up and fight people. You're not supposed to, try to escalate the event because you don't know how mentally stable people are. But just what do you think someone's response should be? These young people kind of laughed it off and tried to move on. But, what would you advise people to do if this happens to them?
It's really a hard thing, right? Because what you're trying to do is keep from getting in trouble. We're not 18, 19 years old anymore. And some of us come from the old school where, okay, you got it like that. Okay, well, you can go on and do what you need to do and knock me down. You just make sure that I don't get up, because if I do, I'm putting something on you the soap won't wash off. There's part of you that wants to be like, wait, that way, right? But you got families, you've got jobs, you've got licensures and things like that. What I would do, perhaps, is draw as much attention to the situation as possible, because there's a certain safety in numbers. I would like to think that people around would not have allowed this person to harm them this way, and I'm pretty certain that other people probably, at the very least, were watching out of the corner of their eyes. So one of the things that you could do is draw attention. In their case, they waited till the restaurant was closed and had someone walk them to their car just to make sure nothing got started. And here's the other part. Ad being, and these people, this guy's fearful. He's scared. He's looking at them saying, you look a certain way. You're the reason my kid didn't get into UCLA, assuming that his people went to college. Or, you're the reason that I can't get a job, or whatever else. They've got these preconceived notions about who they are. And so the question is how you survive the contact. We even talk about this in the context of police and young black people and things like this. How do you deal with that? No, he's not the police. And so you don't have to respect him the same way. But at the same time, you don't want to create a problem for yourself or your family either. So striking a balance, maybe you draw attention to the problem and make sure that you're able to eject without any issues. Or, if it's really like that and I had a real long bad day, you get thug and it comes out how it comes out. But the problem is you don't want to bring a knife to a gunfight. People aren't thinking straight. This whole entitlement thing has got people, he knew that they had a camera on. He didn't get in front of it, but he knew that they had a camera on, and he didn't care. And part of what he wanted to do was to frustrate them and to scare them and to continue to exert the authority that he knows he's losing because he's getting ready to be outnumbered. So you got to strike a balance, the best way that you can. And, even the Bible says, be angry and sin not, right? You can be angry. You can let him know that it's just not going to go the way that he says it's going to go. And you don't have to start it. But the best thing that you can do is survive the contact, and the way to do that is to move forward and to get past it and probably draw as much attention to it as you can.
And Christina, just quickly, I think often people, these racists, they try to find people they think are vulnerable, people that won't do things to them they think they can abuse. And I'll tell people all the time, don't let the smooth taste fool you. I am still ghetto. And things will go down. So please, that should be known information. But you being a more evolved and better person than I, further along in your journey with Christ, how do you think that these young people will handle this?
I think they handled this magnificently. They kept calm. They kept recording. They didn't lose focus on what it was that they came there to do, which was enjoy themselves. It's unfortunate that they had this encounter with this person, but I'm glad that they kept recording on their device, even though they didn't get video evidence of the person who confronted them in the clip that we saw. I would have liked to have seen them turn the camera around on the person so that we could have seen who the person was that approached them and felt so entitled, like Joe said, to commit an offense against them. and that was unprovoked in a public space such as this. I think we're all aware these days that cameras are rolling all over the place. So two people sitting in a booth at a restaurant recording themselves shouldn't draw the ire or interest of another customer or a bystander. I applaud these young people for maintaining their cool and minimally engaging the person and continuing on.
Absolutely. We're hoping there's surveillance footage from the inside of the In-N-Out Burger, and once that is released, we, of course, will provide that to the audience. So we hopefully can bring this person to justice somehow, because there's a couple forms of justice. And as somebody who has been in a fight in many Waffle House parking lots at 2 o'clock in the morning, I can let you know that this person got off light. We'll be back after the break. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network.
I love directing. It's a different kind of piece. I do believe that the 30 years I was acting was to prepare me for what I'm supposed to be doing, and that what I really am good at.
But when you were acting, were you even thinking about directing?
Nope.
Were you? So what the hell happened?
If you had asked me 15 years ago, I probably would have said, no, I don't know. I was doing Ava DuVernay's first film, I Will Follow. Mm-hmm. And during that process, I think because it was her first film, maybe
She's self-taught.
Absolutely. I probably gave too many suggestions. And at some point, Ava said to me, I think you're a director and you don't know it.
Talk about blackness and what happens in black culture. We're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is RolandSMartin.com.
Hey, I'm Antonique Smith.
Hello, everyone. It's Kiara Sheard.
Hey, I'm Taj.
I'm Coco.
And I'm Lily. And we're SWV.
What's up, y'all? It's Ryan Destiny, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Singer and rapper Tory Lanez, real name Daystar Peterson, is about a month away of learning his sentence after being found guilty of the shooting of Meg Thee Stallion, real name Megan Ruth Pete. After a 9-day trial, the California jury convicted the Canadian musician of a 2020 incident. Lanez, who's was convicted of assault with a semi-automatic firearm, carrying a loaded, unregistered handgun in a vehicle, and discharge of a firearm with gross negligence. Lanez will be sentenced on January 27, 2023. The conviction carries up to 22 years and 8 months in prison. Joining us to discuss this is friend, celebrity blogger, Freddie-O from Freddie-O.com. Fred, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing good, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing great. So as you know, because I've known you 20 years, I have no idea who any of these people are. I have no idea what's going on in this case. I've never heard of any of these things. I'm trying to figure out why, if your birth name is Daystar, which is a great rap name, why you change that to Tory. That is what I'm trying to figure out. If my name was Daystar, Daystar would be my rap name. I wouldn't change it to Tory. But explain to people like me what the hell's going on in this case.
Well, basically, Rob, first off, I have to say Tory probably is an easier name. So, of course, you're going to go with what's easier. So this case had a lot of people shook all over the internet. We really thought that basically Meg had made everything up. And, we thought a few of us thought that it was all a lie, in which it really wasn't. And we soon, I guess at the end of this trial, we found out that Meg wasn't lying at all. And in fact, she not only did she tell the truth, but, we found out more. Well, I'll say Meg really messed up in the beginning, Rob, basically because she lied in the beginning, which kind of threw everybody off. And we thought that, these lies, or we really in our minds thought that Meg was lying, but she wasn't.
And so just for the people who are unfamiliar, so Meg Thee Stallion, so Megan Ruth Pete, I'm probably gonna call her Miss Pete, was with Tory Lanez, Mr. Peterson.
Well, we don't know that. We know that they were having relations.
Okay, so they were in some sort of relationship with each other that of varying standards, and that these two individuals, there was a confrontation involving other people. Can you kind of talk about what the kind of initiating incident was that led to this?
Well, the issue was liquor. When you're having a lot of liquor and a lot of libation, and you're at a pool party hosted by Kylie Jenner, things get kind of shaky. And I was told that the two had over like 3, maybe 6 whole bottles of liquor. Now, I think anybody who drinks an entire bottle of liquor is going to be a little off. And so I'm quite sure that's why when she originally testified, she couldn't really tell the truth. I will say that was the reason. But from what I'm hearing, Mr. Lanez basically did a lot of trying to pay people off, which is why we got so many different lies. We didn't really know what the truth was, but the court system found that out.
And so you mentioned, so when the case was initially reported, there were various stories as to what happened. Of course, there's the video of Miss Pete, and you can see her foot bleeding. There were some reports that she had stepped on glass, some reports that she had been shot in the foot. With so many different stories circulating, what do you think it was that convinced the jury to convict Mr. Lanez on all charges?
I'll tell you what it was. It was, first off, they had 3 police officers who gave completely incorrect statements. And not only were those statements like not able to, because what they looked up the gun, they didn't have the correct gun information. They tried to put people who said that they saw a woman with a gun, but they really didn't see a woman with a gun, and that was because from what we're being told, somebody had somebody allegedly paid off. Now nobody can really, we're not going to find out the truth, but a lot of the loss came from Meg had a best friend who we found out was originally sleeping with Tory, but Meg went behind her best friend's back and started trying to sleep with her. I guess that's why Meg really didn't want the facts to hit the internet. But once it did, it got really messy.
Now, with that, why do you think the internet was so quick to claim that Miss Pete, Meg Thee Stallion, was lying? It really set off almost a culture war on the internet, with the one side saying, well, believe women, and then, of course, you had the hoteps of the internet kind of carrying the flag of Tory Lanez, claiming this was proof of women lying on men and making accusations. Why do you think that descended so quickly into a culture war?
I think a lot of the issue that we're having right now is more so a man-woman thing, because I have to say I was kind of guilty of it. I automatically say, oh, she's lying. But, in actuality, she wasn't lying. She told us what it was from the beginning. A lot of people refused to believe that. And again, it kind of reflects on us, the man-woman society. Like, if you ask a woman over a man, majority of the time, we're going to go with the man. So to me, I think that's partly why. Plus the fact that people accuse Meg of lying a lot. Like, it's not something that, she said she wasn't dating him, and then we find out that she was dating him. She said she wasn't, having sex with him, but then we find out that they were, in fact, actually having sex. So when you consistently lie to people and tell us different things, who knows what to believe. So I feel like that really played a big part. But in the end, her friend Kelsey and her having to retract all these statements, because in the beginning, when the police first checked everything out, if you see in that video where Meg is stumbling across the street after being shot 4 times, Rob. She got shot 4 times, or 4 bullet fragments went into her foot. That girl on the ground that looked like she kind of twerking, that's Kelsey. And basically, Kelsey gave the police a statement in the beginning. And not only did she say everything that Meg later testified and said, but when she got on the stand, Kelsey got up there lying, which really messed up Tory Lanez by her lying. And then allegedly they saying Tory gave her a little check for that. So
well, going forward, I think that this sets a precedent where hopefully we can start believing women from the beginning. But why? What do you think needs to happen? This kind of a broader overall policy question, so that we can actually start believing women from the beginning. We saw similar things with R. Kelly, similar things with Bill Cosby. That often women just simply aren't believed when they make a complaint, particularly against, as you said, a wealthy or powerful or well-connected man who has the ability to quote unquote pay people off for their testimony. How can we start bringing more justice to women who are abused?
You know what? I would want to say in my mind, you know, there's an answer, but I really think it's dependent upon how you're raised. It's more of a value of the way you're raised. If you're raised by a woman, you're probably more likely, you know, to listen to a woman. But depending on, you know, your masculine traits, because I think that's really what it kind of plays. I hate to say it like that, but that's really what it's playing down to me. It's not really...
I think we definitely saw a strong dose of toxic masculinity on the internet when it came to this question. And the parents of Tory Lanez are still blaming everybody except for their son for what happened. But at the end of the day, even if you don't get a conviction or if you disagree on the question of the aggravated assault, he still had a semi-automatic weapon in a car in California, which is already a felony. So you're going to be convicted of something. The only question is a question of extent. Thank you so much, Fred Anderson. FreddieO.com for all your celebrity blogging and gossip needs. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go to a quick break here. We're still watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
On the next A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, it's time to tie up those loose ends. Setting yourself up for balance, success, and even prosperity in the new year. Financial expert Pamela Sams joins our panel. She will give us a checklist of things that we need to do before the calendar turns.
We develop our money mindset by the age of 6. And so we have our sometimes 6-year-old self still operating in the background of our money scripts.
That's next on A Balanced Life on Black Star Network.
Next on The Black Table with me, Greg Carr, we welcome the Black Star Network's very own Roland Martin, who joins us to talk about his new book, White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. The book explains so much about what we're going through in this country right now, and how, as white people head toward becoming a racial minority, it's going to get, well, let's just say, even more interesting.
We are going to see more violence. We're going to see more vitriol, because as each day passes, it is a nail in that coffin.
The one and only Roland Martin on the next Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Angie Stone.
Hi, I'm Teresa Griffin.
Oh, Roland. Hey, Roland, I am so disappointed that you are not here, first of all. Where's our dance? It's like we get a dance in every time I see you. And so now you're not here for me to dance with, sir. You and your ascot. I need it. I need that in my life right now. Okay, I love you, Roland.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
We're going to to continue this conversation on the verdict of the Tory Lanez shooting in the Meg Thee Stallion case. But first, make sure you hit that like button on Facebook and YouTube. Look, this is almost like Noah telling people it's going to rain. And we need you to hit the like and subscribe button. We got to bring y'all to the water. This is also why Noah became a drunk afterwards. I'm trying to tell y'all this every day. Hit the like button. It helps with the analytics. It helps to grow the show. It helps to spread the message and bring more people in. And the algorithm that the computer uses, so I'm gonna drag y'all across, just like getting Moses or Noah getting people on the boat. Going back to the panel, Christina, you are a former prosecutor. Can you talk a little bit about this case from the prosecutor's perspective and how they were able to secure a conviction given the various testimony, the various conflicting eyewitness accounts of what happened?
So the prosecutor's goal in this case was to bring forth all of the evidence and then to draw a line for the jury between each witness testifying, each piece of forensic evidence, each piece of expert testimony directly towards a guilty verdict. It seems as though the defense in this case mounted what we call a Sogdi or Sajdi defense. Some other guy or girl did it, but they never successfully named another person to point the finger at. In fact, they refuted potential other suspects or defendants who could have committed this offense against Meg Thee Stallion, but the prosecutor's job in this case was to show that despite the defense attempting to muddy the water, so to speak, that there was a clear line of continuous evidence that matched up between Meg Thee Stallion, from Kelsey, from eyewitnesses who were standing nearby, to witnesses who saw the three of them interact prior to this incident occurring, and also to explain how it is that Meg Thee Stallion provided different testimony, but why that was consistent with what ultimately was the verdict in this case. So just drawing that line for the jurors and showing them how to achieve the guilty verdict despite the conflicts was the prosecutor's goal in this case.
Now, if you were approaching this case from the other side of the bench as the prosecutor, how do you get over the conflicting testimony, the previous inconsistent statements? Some people say she stepped on glass. Some people say she was shot in the foot. One person said they had a gun. Someone else said there was no gun. How do you present that to a jury in such a way that they get those straight lines to lead to a singular verdict?
You explained it in a way that the jury can understand. So, for instance, when Meg Thee Stallion testified, reporters informed us, those of us who were tuning in at home to the daily updates, that the reason why she gave inconsistent testimony to the police is because she was afraid. And I believe that was consistent with her behavior on the stand. I believe that those listening, including the jurors, could understand that if you've just been shot by someone that you are familiar with, it might be challenging to you to give coherent information to police officers. And we have to realize that at the time that this occurred, we were in the midst of one of the biggest police brutality cases that this country has ever seen the likes of with the George Floyd matter. I believe that her testimony also included her saying that she was afraid of the police at this point in time. She didn't know who to trust, or since she had survived this one interaction, if she was subjecting herself to another interaction that was going to cause her harm by speaking to the police. Plus, she's in an industry and of a community that actually requires people to keep quiet and not talk to the police and not come forward. So I believe that this situation was very conflicting for Ms. Pete. And once that information was explained to the jury, it was easy for them to digest. Even her inconsistencies were much more palatable and they made sense. Now, when you attempt to explain away inconsistencies and the reasoning doesn't make sense to the listener, whether it's a person at home or a juror, then you would get a different verdict than the one that was reached in this case.
And so, what happens next in this case? Of course, sentencing comes up in January. What are the post-conviction rights that Mr. Lanez has to potentially challenge this either with a new trial or with an appeal down the line?
So I think what we have coming up next is the sentencing hearing, and both the prosecution and the defense will sort of put on a mini trial and explain to the judge why the outcome that they are suggesting to the court should be the outcome sentencing wise. Of course, as you've already stated, Mr. Peterson faces up to 22 years in custody. That's the maximum sentence. The judge could take into consideration prior criminal history, whether or not he was on probation or parole at the time that this offense occurs, whether he's been convicted of similar offenses in the past. All of that may factor into the sentence that the judge ultimately imposes in this case. As far as post-conviction appellate rights are concerned, Mr. Peterson is going to have a team of lawyers, I'm certain, comb over the evidence and mount every legal challenge available to him, or even ones that may not be available to him, in order to get the conviction overturned and to secure a new trial. That, however, is more of a long-term goal rather than a short-term goal. At the sentencing hearing, I think we can expect that his attorney will ask for the minimum sentence available for all of the crimes that he's been convicted of, and even sometimes they ask the judge to go outside the required sentencing guidelines, because the defense will likely state that they feel as though this case warrants it. But I don't see that based on these facts. I see a gun crime against a woman that was likely fueled by alcohol, as you previously stated, and I see very little mitigation for Mr. Peterson to secure a light sentence or something that is outside of the guidelines.
So I want to bring Joe into this conversation, Attorney Richardson. So Joe, I want you to put your defense attorney hat on in this case. If you were defense counsel for Mr. Lanez and your client has been convicted, you're facing sentencing, what will be the next steps you would take, and what will be some of the defenses you would raise when you're trying to petition either for a new trial or appealing to a higher tribunal?
I certainly don't disagree with what's been said. I mean, battle line number one is trying to minimize this sentence. And so therefore, now you're putting on evidence that demonstrates that, in fact, okay, you guys convicted him, but he shouldn't be punished for this reason, that reason, or another reason. Sometimes when you have violent offenders and things like that, you're talking about what they went through in their childhood. You're talking about, things that they have dealt with that should give some context to the mistakes that they made. Okay, so anything that they believe that they could use that would potentially help him and make him look better and speak to the purveyors of mercy and the judge, they're going to put that on. Now, as it pertains to the appeal, I would imagine they're going to probably argue some of the things that they think that they should have been able to put on from an evidence standpoint. If there are certain things that didn't come in that they wanted to come in, things that they thought would have made a difference. So it can't just be that there was some kind of error, right, that they think, but it's a reversible error. It's something that actually made a difference here. But here's what's funny, they really don't have a whole lot to complain about for the judge, because the prosecution wanted to add a couple more charges. They wanted to add the charge related to him offering $1 million to Megan to not say anything. So he could have had more put on him than he ended up having put on him. And so really, in that regard, unlike, what his parents says, contrary to what his parents say, that there's all of this injustice, a lot of times we had this happen in every community, but not the least of which is our community. You've got, people that, like to provide context and say, this is unjust or whatever else. No. Don't bring a gun, to a situation like this and have somebody dance and shoot. And if there is an issue related to testimony, of course you have a right not to incriminate yourself. But maybe he should have gotten on the stand and laid this out. If he could have identified that reasonable doubt to break up the chain that was just talked about, so that Megan could not be believed. And even if you liked Megan, you said, well, I'm just not sure. Maybe he could have done that. Clearly, he wouldn't have been any worse off unless he came off as flippant, because he ended up getting convicted. You know what I mean? So he didn't get a bad shake here, so much so I think he's going to have a hard time. You'd have a hard time anyway, on appeals, if there's not something clearly that should have happened that didn't, or that should have happened that did. Shouldn't have happened that did.
Absolutely. Professor Nichols, we got about a minute or so left. What do you think needs to happen to stop these culture wars from breaking out every time there's any interaction between black men and black women? What can we do to get people to just better believe women the first time, instead of, trying to paint all of them as harlots and liars and money grubbers, etc., as we've seen in this case online?
Well, I think there generally needs to be a cultural shift. I think, I understand about taking allegations seriously and not necessarily blanket believing people, but certainly take them seriously. And there seems to be this knee-jerk reaction to automatically discount people like Meg Thee Stallion, which I didn't understand how there was any doubt in what she was saying. And the fact that she may have said, oh, we didn't sleep together. Look, if you're a dude out there, there's probably 4 women denying that they ever slept with you, because, you're not worth bragging about. So I didn't see how that was relevant at all. I don't think Tory Lanez could have saved himself at all. But there is like this misogyny that we have, and it's in the larger culture too, because in my class, I actually referenced him shooting Meg Thee Stallion, and I had a bunch of women, white and black, who were saying they thought Meg Thee Stallion was a liar. And I was like, I didn't understand it. We have to address misogyny at large, and particularly in our community where we need the unity between black men and black women. And I just want to say one last point, and that is, I don't believe Joe when he says he would have had Tory Lanez take the stand. I've watched enough, LA Law or all that. You don't put those guys on the stand because they're going to get destroyed. So I think he's fibbing there.
Well, look, I think that we have to watch these things going forward. Of course, there'll be an appellate process thereafter that we'll keep people updated on. But Jason, I think that might just be you they're giving them bad reports out on. You might want to check on that. See, when I do my thing, they build a trophy and a statue to me outside. It's like the Staples Center. But that's just
I just said they lied about me.
I'm just saying you're telling on yourself. I'm like Luke out here putting up 60, 20, and 10 in the game. Triple doubles never been done before. All right, we'll be back after the break. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds. As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting. We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance.
We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, I'm Amber Stevens-West. I'm Avery Sunshine.
So this is Roger Bow. I got a message for Roland Mascot. Oh, I'm sorry, Ascot Martin. Buddy, you're supposed to be hooking me up with some of these mascots. I'm sorry, ascots that you claim to wear. Where's mine, buddy? Where's mine? That's all I got to say to you, okay? Mascot, goodbye.
Hi, this is Essence Atkins, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Another Hall of Fame NFL player is going to an HBCU to help educate and train the next generation. Former Baltimore Ravens safety and Super Bowl champion Ed Reed will be the new head coach at Bethune-Cookman University. He's following in the footsteps of other NFL greats like Eddie George at Tennessee State University, of course, Deion Sanders at Jackson State University. We've also seen more and more former NFL coaches and coordinators go the HBCU route. I want to bring the panel in on this discussion really quick. I'll start with you, Jason. What do you think that means when we're starting to see this top flight talent now going to HBCUs about building these programs and bringing more attention to the institutions?
Well, I think you have to give some of the credit to Deion Sanders. I mean, this happened before. We've seen NFL players like Doug Williams when he was at Grambling State University. We've seen this before, but I think Deion Sanders brought such attention and this as a viable route to get into head coaching and not have to be an assistant for a lot of former NFL players, that you're going to get someone the quality of Ed Reed, who is unquestionably the greatest safety to ever play the game. Don't at me. There's no question about it that this is the greatest safety. Tom Brady said the only player he's ever feared was Ed Reed. So, I think this is also going to bring a lot of attention to Bethune-Cookman. If you're a defensive player, I don't know who you'd want to be coached by other than Ed Reed. So I think that this is something where Deion Sanders got the ball rolling, and you're seeing a lot of guys who want to help young men, particularly young black men like themselves, and get a head coaching gig. And HBCUs seem to be a viable avenue for that. So I think it's great. I think it's going to be amazing. I think it's going to bring even more attention to HBCU sports.
Christina, there was a lot of criticism of Deion in the last couple of weeks, leaving for Colorado from Jackson State. But at the same time, he showed these former NFL players that you can come coach at HBCU for 1 or 2 years and then be making $5 million a couple years later. Do you think there should be as much credit given to Ed Reed for taking this position as there was criticism of Deion Sanders for leaving?
Absolutely. I think that the example that Deion set is just like you said. HBCUs create opportunities for the people who attend them. So if Deion Sanders had not coached at Jackson State, that $5 million opportunity may or may not have been available to him. And so we should seek out opportunities at HBCUs and allow those opportunities to take us where they lead. There's no shame in elevating yourself to a $5 million salary. Although your start may be meager, he did a lot. Deion, meaning, did a lot for Jackson State. And so the attention he brought both on the field and to the athletic program, to the city of Jackson, Mississippi, while they were going through a water crisis, from a perspective of a coach, and put the spotlight on student athletes. Ed Reed can go and do the same thing at Bethune-Cookman. I think everywhere there's an HBCU in this country, there's an opportunity for a former NFL star to go and shed a light on opportunities for improvement, and the talent that exists at HBCUs. We can and should be willing to criticize and elevate.
And Joe, this seems to be a win-win for everybody. The institution, when these Hall of Fame players come, they get more attention, they get more sponsorship, they get more money, they get better recruiting classes. They're getting 5-star recruits going to HBCUs now. All the coaches, on the other hand, instead of having to be an intern for a head coach and getting coffee and sleeping in the office, you get the opportunity to dive right into head coaching of these students that open opportunities for you down the road. What do you think it means to these students to have somebody like Ed Reed be your head coach, and kind of what that provides to them, giving that sort of mentorship that you really can't get anywhere else?
I think that every sports coach has an obligation not only to help their athletes be better athletes, but to be better people. I think that is magnified in the Black community, where you have to instruct and remind on things, including how to deal with police, the importance of you finishing school. Those types of things. And so I would think that hopefully this Coach Reed, and others will take it on themselves to be that much more comprehensive, and not only in helping these folks be good men, but actually helping their colleges do well economically. Like Gwen Guthrie said, ain't nothing going on but the rent. But my favorite part of the song was there's no romance without finance. If Bethune-Cookman doesn't build buildings, if it doesn't add resources, if it doesn't add endowment, then ultimately the only people that will benefit will be college people, will be the college football players. Another thing that can happen, by the way, which doesn't necessarily have to take a whole lot of money, is that, and some schools are already doing this, that they have someone designated to help folks deal with NIL, to help them deal with taking advantage of economic opportunities that can make a huge difference. There are kids that are making thousands of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, on social media. That's something that you can do, particularly when you're connected to the culture. You know what's hot, you know what's going on, you know what folks like. You can really help them be business people, help them to understand how to maximize this thing economically, even as they do schooling. And so what we're hoping is that this allows them to be comprehensive, and that there is a renewed discussion. Roland talks about this all the time, about people that went to Bethune-Cookman. How many people are going to give to Bethune-Cookman that went there that haven't given since however much period of time because they just added Ed Reed? Okay, I don't want them to be in condemnation, but I want them to give and remember that Bethune-Cookman was the school that they went to, and there were always kids there during that whole time that they didn't give that needed their support. And so what we have to do is use it as an opportunity to teach a culture of fundraising from the very, very beginning of the college years. Just like we should be teaching money at the dinner table in our communities, we should be teaching fundraising so that our HBCUs can survive and thrive. Of course, football gives you an opportunity to create a lot of money that helps to support the other sports. So it's absolutely important, but it draws attention. It can create academic partnerships. Even what's going on with the Big Ten is not only beneficial financially on the sports side, but it's beneficial because of the collaborations that will take place academically. So we need to think that way and be comprehensive so that these places can not only survive, but actually thrive.
Absolutely, and I think it's important that we give back to our HBCUs and our institutions. I'm just saying I want Michael Vick to come coach Clark Atlanta University. That's all that I ask you. Vick, come back home, come coach the Panthers. And also, let's not forget, the one thing that's most important during these football games is the marching band. Halftime is game time. Stick around for the fifth quarter. Let's not take our eyes off the prize of what we're really here for. It's the band. All right, we'll be back after the break. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us.
We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037- 0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland@RolandSMartin.com.
I love directing. It's a different kind of piece. I do believe that the 30 years I was acting was to prepare me for what I'm supposed to be doing and that what I'm really am good at.
But when you were acting, were you even thinking about directing?
Nope.
Were you? So what the hell happened?
If you had asked me 15 years ago, I probably would have said, no, I don't know. I was doing Ava DuVernay's first film, I Will Follow. Mm-hmm. And during that process, I think because it was her first film, maybe
She's self-taught.
Absolutely. I probably gave too many suggestions. And at some point, Ava said to me, I think you're a director and you don't know it.
Hey, I'm Cupid, the maker of the Cupid Shuffle and the Wham Dance.
What's going on? This is Tobias Trevelyan. And if you're ready, you are listening to and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
In today's Tech Talk, some of you suck at gardening. Part of the reason is not being able to identify many of the invasive species in your yard that are choking the life out of your tomatoes, your flowers, your grass, etc. Well, one high school senior is changing all that. Jones May, a senior at Houston's Carnegie Vanguard High School, has created the Ivy app. This app allows you to quickly upload photos, cross-reference, and identify many of these invasive species in your yard and gives you the opportunity to kill them before they can kill your plants. Joining us now is the Apple Swift Student Challenge winner, Mr. Jones May II, to discuss this fantastic app. Jones, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
So tell us a little bit about this app. What got you interested in gardening and botany as a high school senior?
Yeah, so Ivy is really a platform that allows the user to detect invasive plants by either uploading an image or by taking an image within the app. And it was really inspired by my grandfather. So in Tunica, Mississippi, me and my grandfather had a community garden where we grew everything under the sun. And unfortunately, we had to deal with this very invasive vine, the kudzu vine. If you're from the South, you will know what this vine is. It's highly invasive, and it's almost impossible to get rid of. And with this app, you're able to quickly identify it. So being from Tunica, Mississippi, and understanding how invasive plants work, I really wanted to create an app that honored his legacy, because unfortunately during the pandemic, he sadly passed away. But with this app, I was able to honor his legacy and fight an issue that we really both had to deal with.
And so talk a little bit about how the mechanics, how the app works. So if you see something growing, you don't know what it is, because often, as you said, kudzu, I grew up in Georgia, kudzu leaves can look a lot like cucumber leaves if you're not well acquainted with it. Or if you're growing melons in your backyard, the leaves look like poison ivy sometimes. How exactly does it work with helping people identify, and does it give advice on how to deal with them?
Yeah, so the app really works by allowing the user to take an image, and with that, it uses machine learning in order to kind of differentiate between which vine it may be. So if it's a cucumber, it will tell you that it's non-invasive, or if it's a kudzu vine, it'll tell you if it's a kudzu vine. And right now, it does over 20 invasive plants, but however, me and a group of friends are trying to expand that to hundreds in the future. So it really does this by using machine learning.
Talk a little bit about that machine learning process, because you have things like Google Lens. Apple has a product where they cross-reference many of these things. How were you able to create this program, this algorithm, where you can simply take a picture, cross-reference it with the database online, and then identify what it is?
Yeah, so this app was really created using Apple's Create ML platform. And essentially, this is a platform where you're able to collect images and build a machine learning model that's able to detect pretty much anything you would like. So systematically, through the 10 invasive plants that it detects currently, I was able to get over 1,000 images from Google and other platforms such as that. And I was able to train my model in order to recognize that when you take a picture. So it'll tell you whether or not it's invasive or not by you doing that model.
And so, just real quick, for people who have young folks in their family, like my 16-year-old niece, who I told to watch this segment, how did you get into app development? Like, what age did you get started to the point where you could be launching your own app your senior year of high school?
Yeah, so I started fairly late, but I encourage everyone, and especially the parents listening, to drop your kids off at a Coding Whiz platform or a use code.org, because starting early is very crucial. And when you start early, you can teach these kids that coding's not just science and just doing math. It's really a platform for kids to show their creativity, whether through app design or mobile development. Coding is a language and a platform that allows kids to do pretty much whatever they want. And it's not just math or science, it's everything.
Oh, you have given my niece Mackenzie so much work that she's going to have to do. I thank you for that so much. We're going to bring our panel in. Professor Nichols, you have a question for our guest?
So first of all, this app seems like it's amazing, and I'm hoping that I'm understanding it, but I don't know if you're probably too young, but there was a movie a long time ago. I think it was called Into the Wild, where a guy actually he was, kind of camping out in the woods, and he ate a flower that was poisoned, and it actually ended up killing him. Now, would this app not only identify that flower, but tell you if it was edible?
Yeah, so with this app, it tells you whether or not the plant is invasive. And if the plant is invasive, it tells you how to best handle it, whether or not it's poisonous, whether or not you need to wear gloves and things of that nature. And as me and a group of friends are expanding the app, we're going to include plant care. So it would cover things like whether or not you're able to eat this plant and how long it would take for it to grow.
So thank you very much.
That is absolutely amazing. Joe, did you have a question for our guest, Jones May?
Yeah, Brother May, this is awfully impressive what you're doing. I'm thrilled for you. When you get techie and everything, you kind of talk over my head a little bit, but that's okay because you guys have got this going on generationally. I wonder what your plans are, if you've made them, related to your career path. And would it actually, we all know you can do anything you want to because you're already doing it, but is it going to be connected to technology? Is it going to be connected to plants and horticulture, if we still use that word? That was a class I had in junior high school back when you were a good idea. But, is it going to be connected to that business? Or is it going to be connected to, what do you think it's going to be connected to, or would it put it all together?
Yeah, so, I'm in the thick of college applications, and I'm really trying to pursue a degree in computer science because ultimately I really love mobile app development. So my end goal is to, get a job in software development and ultimately become a software engineer.
Wow. Well, I listen, I got no doubt it's going to happen, man. This is really good, and we're proud of you, man. It's good stuff.
Absolutely. Christina, do you have a question for Jones? I think you might be on mute, Christina.
How do users download your app to use it in their own gardens at home?
Yeah, so definitely. Ivy is available on the App Store. We are also going to be available on Android in a few months. Bear with us. We are having some technical difficulties as we start to add more and more plant species. But ultimately, in the next couple of months, you'll be able to detect over 100 plants and really suit the user's needs.
And so I had a follow-up question. Have you worked or reached out to any major corporations to potentially help you with developing this or to move this idea along? I'm certain that companies like Home Depot and Lowe's or John Deere, any agricultural company, will be more than happy to sponsor a team like yours that are putting together an app of this nature. Have you had any contact with groups of that nature?
Yeah, so definitely that is a great idea, and me and my co-founders are definitely going to be considering that. But I know that we have been given so many wonderful resources from the people at Apple, especially when I was able to visit Apple's campus, and we were to get so much feedback on how app development works, and especially through some of their programs that they have going on now, we're able to take classes and really get feedback on our applications.
Absolutely. And so, can you talk a bit about how you want to grow this going forward? Is this something you're going to continue while you're in college, or is this kind of a stepping stone for the next area of your life?
Yeah, so definitely we're going to continue to grow this, especially the freeze that we just had. It made me realize that plant care and delivery is really a thing that should be expanded upon because unfortunately my pineapple plant died because of the freeze. And I really wish I would have had a platform that would give me a reminder saying, take in my pineapple plant before the freeze comes. In addition to that, there also should be a platform where you can order a pineapple plant if unfortunately you weren't able to take it in. So me and my friends are really trying to go into plant delivery and care in the next few months.
Absolutely. And just as we wrap up here, what are some of the colleges you're looking at and applying to that you want to pursue this at?
Yeah, so definitely Howard, because my grandfather went to Howard. Looking at Stanford and those type of colleges. Yeah.
Okay, well, look, we're going to help grease those skids. Look, everybody, if you can get someone through some nepotism and some connections, by all means do so. So email me after the show. We want to make sure we connect you with the right people. How can people download the app and where can they find more information on the team that you put together developing this?
Yeah, so definitely on the App Store. It's called Ivy Plant Identifier. And my team will be listed in the coming weeks as we continue to grow and expand, and look forward to the coming updates about plant delivery and care.
Well, we really support you. We really thank you for everything you're working on. You're an inspiration. We like to highlight young people who are doing the right thing, not just the people doing the wrong thing. We really appreciate the thing you're doing. Just remember to reach out to me. I'm going to work on connecting with some people in the agricultural industry that might be interested in this. Jones May, the Ivy app, you can get an Ivy identifier in the Apple App Store. It'll be coming to the Android store going forward. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Look, that wraps up another episode of Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. You still have time to like, subscribe, share. We're trying to get 1,000 likes on each of these videos. When Roland gets back, we can show it to him and just let him know we keep this train rolling. Even if he's not here, it is still in good hands. Got to thank our guests today for everything they've done. Got to thank our panel, Joe Richardson, Jason Nichols, Christina Sears, who are pinch hitting and hopping in at the last minute. Got to thank Fred Anderson, FreddieO.com, as well as Dr. Nola Hayes. I got to thank the control room for staying in my ear and keeping this train rolling down the line. And as I say to end every show, in the words of Gil Scott Heron, no matter the consequences or fears to grip your senses, you got to hold on to your dreams. Hold on to your dreams, America. Holla!